Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a 2-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.
Hey, good morning, my friends. It is a beautiful day here in Kingman, Arizona, about 65 degrees. Summer is coming up pretty darn quick, and we're getting some previews here. It's going to top out somewhere around close to 90 degrees today. So, a tad bit warm. We got the Kingman street drags taking place today. And we're going to be talking about road trips of a different kind, and sneak peek at the future, I suppose. John, good morning. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
You know, I have really been looking forward to this since you sent me an email with some of the maps of your adventures. It reminds me so much of what people were doing 120 years ago with gas cars. It's pretty exciting.
So you say 120 years ago with gas cars?
Yeah, people, were setting out. People had myths. 120 years ago, people had range anxiety. They had taking these epic road trips, inspiring other people to take a road trip. And your adventures with your Tesla, remind me of that very much.
The first cars were electric.
Right. Yeah. Well, I joke about this, but my pa always said, better to fill your head with useless knowledge than no knowledge at all.
Yeah.
And the first person ever killed by an automobile in the United States was a gentleman named Bliss. And apparently he was struck by an electric taxi cab in the 1890s.
That's sad, but okay. That sounds interesting.
Well, electric vehicles, people overlook this. And this is why one reason I was excited that I was really grateful that you agreed to join us this morning. People have misconceptions about electric vehicles and misunderstandings about how long they've been with us and the important role that electric vehicles have played in automotive evolution.
Yep.
It sounds like you've been an early proponent of electric vehicles.
Go ahead.
How long have you been involved with electric vehicles?
My first electric vehicle was in the year 2000. It was a General Motors EV1.
Oh, yes.
And I drove that as my only car for 3 years. So it met all my needs at the time. It only had a range of 80 miles. Now I didn't drive it out of the city, but it got me to the airport. So and it was free parking at the airport.
Well, this is one of the exciting things about EV evolution today. Electric vehicles have always been practical for urban use.
Yes.
But it's only recently that we've gotten to a point where you can take to the open road.
Well, I was doing that in my my first EV after the EV1, which was a 2013 Tesla Model S. So we've been at it for a while. It's been, 11 years?
Yeah. Tesla was not only a pioneer in the automotive modern electric vehicle, but they have addressed one of the key problems, which was developing an infrastructure.
Yes. It's a main key to their success.
Yeah. The maps that you sent me was really impressive. You traveled all of the to all the reservations here in Arizona with a
Yeah,
Tesla.
21 Indian reservations with a friend of mine, and it was a very interesting trip. It showed me the huge lack of infrastructure on in Indian country in the state.
Not just for electric vehicles, just a lack of infrastructure in general on the reservations. It's a pretty serious problem.
There's still people, for example, in the Navajo Nation that don't have water, don't have running water, don't have electricity.
Yeah.
Pretty remote. So
You've also made trips into Canada and pretty much all over the United States
yes,
with Teslas.
yep.
I think Tesla right now is the most practical for long distance travel. Uh, I have my knowledge of electric vehicles is a little bit more than the frogs is of tap dancing, but so I'm looking forward to this, kind of fill in my ignorance, help me overcome some of my ignorance on this. But it seems like we're really lagging on infrastructure for vehicles that are not Tesla.
Well, Tesla has opened up a lot of its chargers now to Ford and Rivian. So if you have a Ford or a Rivian, you can get an adapter and you can use Tesla superchargers around the country.
Oh, excellent! That is excellent.
And a lot of the other automakers are next. I think General Motors is next. So, but a lot of them, I think probably 90% of them have basically said they are going to the what's called the uh, NACS, NACS. So that is the Tesla, it's the North American charging uh, system. I think
It's really intriguing. I'm a proponent. I write extensively on the early automotive industry, and some of the parallels are quite fascinating between today with the electric vehicle and the automobile in general around 1900. The misconceptions, the myths, the misunderstandings are really surprising.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, NACS stands for North American Charging Standard.
You also traveled into Canada with your Tesla. Did you find the infrastructure a little more advanced there, or?
Well, I wouldn't call it more advanced. So going across, I don't know if it's Canada, but going across Newfoundland when we were up there, there was a charger every 100 kilometers, and when those charging stations had basically two cables, one level 2 charger, which doesn't get you very far, and one level 3 charger. It's not like here, in the US where you have Tesla charging stations that have upwards of 90 chargers, some of them, but at least 4 or more. So there it's, just two or one charger per location. But when we went through on our summer trip last year through Newfoundland, so we drove all the way from Arizona to Newfoundland. It was an 11,000-mile round trip. Once we got off the Tesla network, there were fewer chargers, and there was only one charger per station. Except in some parks, like in Cape Breton National Park, we came to an area where they had, I think it was 4 or 6 chargers.
It's really intriguing how fast the technologies are developing. The battery technology there was two primary reasons that the early electric vehicles struggled to gain a share of the market. One was battery technology, range, and the second was places that didn't have electricity. Grants, New Mexico, for example, didn't have electricity till the 1920s. So it would have been pretty hard to sell a Detroit Electric in Grants if the whole town doesn't have electricity.
Very true.
The battery development is really a fascinating subject that I don't think is getting enough attention on how rapidly that's evolving.
Yes, it is. Well, when you put money behind things, it changes. So there's a lot of investment going into battery infrastructure. I mean, battery chemistry and charging infrastructure.
The new solid state batteries look like they might have a lot of promise.
That's right now. That's what it is. They have a lot of promise, but there's not a excuse me. There's not a that I'm aware of a manufacturer that is using solid state.
No, not yet. One of the problems people talk about a lot is, especially if we get into solid state batteries, is how much heavier the cars are than, say, a Ford Focus or something of that nature. When you took that 11,000-mile trip, did you encounter any problems at all?
So we had no problems as long as we were on the Tesla network, we had no problems. So once we got to, once we got beyond Halifax, Nova Scotia, we got into using other different charging companies. Most of them worked, but we ran into a problem after we'd gotten to Newfoundland, and then we got back to Nova Scotia. We had one issue where we got to a charger and it wasn't working. And we asked, there was a line of Teslas in front of it. So I went over and asked them, I said, so when did you get, does the supercharger or does the level 3 charger work? And they said, no. And this was in June of last year. And I said, so when is, did you call for service? And they said, yeah, back in April. So, and then we got to the next charger on our route, and that one wasn't working because the person who used it beforehand the thing automatically rebooted, and it got stuck in the reboot. And I asked the guy who was waiting in front of me, and he said, yeah, well, sometimes it can take a couple of hours to reboot. And this was the same company, so that one didn't work. So we went to the next route on our map. It was about, I forget how far away it was. I think it was about 40 miles away. And my wife and I made an executive decision. Do we go to the next charger for this company that has 2 failed ones, or do we go 20 miles out of our way back to Halifax to the Tesla supercharger? So we went back to this. We went to the supercharger and we were fine. So that was the only thing in the 11,000 miles of this trip.
Well, that's not too bad at all. One of the things people have to do is adjust their thinking a little bit with electric vehicles. It's not the same as we're creatures of habit, and we've been trained to pull up to the gas pump and fill the car and take off. And you just have to adjust your thinking a tad bit with electric vehicles. I had a recent opportunity. I've thanks to Mike and Jessica May and a few other, I have some experience with Tesla. I recently took a trip in a new Volkswagen electric over to Winslow,
Mhm.
and it was obvious that anything that's not Tesla, there seemed to be some issues, shall we say, with charging systems.
Yes.
Your trip here in Arizona, the reservations, you got into some pretty darn remote areas.
We did.
Did that cause you any issues?
For one trip, we had to double back to Kingman. So we were, I forget the exact route we took that day, but we started in on the river. I think it was, I can't remember which reservation it was, but it was up near Laughlin. And we went through Kingman, and we got to, I think it was the Havasupai Nation, it's called Hualapai Hilltop. And we had to double back to Kingman to recharge to make it to Flagstaff.
Oh, yeah. That even for a gas vehicle, that is remote. That road on Highway 18 out to Wallapai Hilltop before you go down to Supai, that is remote.
Right.
That is absolutely remote. No services at all for 60 miles out, and it's a dead end road. So you got 60, 70 miles out and the same back just to get to Route 66. And there's still no services.
Right. So, there are places certainly where there need to be chargers. One of those places is Seligman, in my view.
Yeah. Let's see. From Kingman, I guess the next charger would be Flagstaff.
Currently, yes.
Yeah, that's kind of a long stretch. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, does the extreme heat here in Arizona create problems for you with a Tesla?
No.
I assumed as much, but since I get that question a lot, I thought I'd ask somebody who's not guessing, somebody who actually knows. It's pretty exciting here. I'm glad you were here at the fun run. I'm sorry I missed you.
Yeah.
It is one of the great things about that event is it's a pretty good snapshot of automotive history and evolution, and seeing Rivian and Tesla vehicles is it's the next step. It's the next step in this. But I'm glad you were able to attend that this year.
Well, I've attended it the last 3 or 4 fun runs. The first one we found. How I found the fun run was when my friend Hans and I were on the Native American nation tour, and we were coming up from that one I described before. We were coming up from the river. We went to Kingman, and we thought, let's go on Route 66. And as we were riding on Route 66 towards Peach Springs, all these EVs, all these antique vehicles were coming against the opposite direction. And we thought, what is going on here? Maybe this is an event or something, or a common thing. And when we got to Peach Springs, there were all these antique EVs, not EV, antique internal combustion engine vehicles. And we stopped and we took people on rides in my Tesla. And I guess it was the first Route 66 ride and drive that I created there. And then we came back the next year, and there were 4 EVs. And we thought we could do a better job than that. And so not this year, but last year, we worked with the Electric Vehicle Association and others, and we got 30 EVs to that event.
Very good.
And now this year, we have now created our organization here is now Drive Electric Arizona. We have a Department of Energy grant to promote EVs statewide and work on taking down, barriers to EV adoption. And so we created a chapter which launched at the fun run this year, which is Drive Electric Route 66 Kingman. And that is run by Jessica and Tasha O'Neill.
Yes, Jessica and Mike May, they've done a great job here in this part of the country as, shall we say, EV evangelists. They show up at a lot of our events, and they wade right into the hot rod crowd and the diehard gas heads, and freely share about their adventures with Tesla and encourage people to look at it and become familiar with it. And education is always the primary. Trying to educate people about things such as the EV. That's the first step.
Yes.
The Historic Electric Vehicle Foundation. I'm really excited about what they're doing. We that project kicked off in 2014 at the International Route 66 Festival here in Kingman. We worked with Roderick Wild. The theme of that event was Kingman, Crossroads of the Past and Future. And this electric vehicle chapter is, well, that's the next step in that as well.
Yes. And during the fun run this year, we had a big show down at the Kingman Visitor Center. But my daughter and I were at Peach Springs, and we were doing a display event for EVs there, and there was a lot of interest from the Hualapai tribe members and from the people coming through with their gas powered vehicles. So I think we had 118 unique contacts with people who were interested in EVs.
Once you can dispel myths, people are a lot more receptive.
Yes.
And there again, one of the primary problems still is infrastructure. But I think with awareness, and people will be clamoring more for improved infrastructure. I think we're going to see more public support for that.
Yeah, I think it's not just infrastructure. My experience is that there are people that are just afraid to do it or afraid to try it. I met a woman here recently that had a Tesla for 5 years and she's never driven it out of Phoenix.
Well, there again, this. I find the parallels really fascinating with the early 20th century. You would read articles and read stories about these people that had these cars and they were terrified to leave town with them because of range anxiety. But at the same time, you had people like Emily Post setting out cross country in 1915 and writing a best-selling book and doing basically what you've been doing, uh, encouraging people. Yeah, the infrastructure is a little thin in spots. That's changing. Get out there on the road and enjoy your automobile.
Absolutely. And for us, driving an EV cross country, we do this differently than our back when I was driving an ICE vehicle, and that was we used to drive, down to we would run the tank down to what it was a pattern of a quarter of a tank, and then we would fill it up and go. And with an EV, we do it maybe differently than other people who are just switching over to EVs. And that is, we stop every 2 to 3 hours to charge. There are plenty of chargers out there, if at least in a Tesla, or at least using the NACs. So that will be the same for Ford and the others who will have adapters to use the NACs. But we stop every 2 to 3 hours. We don't go all the way down to 20%. There are so many chargers out there, really. People don't realize how advanced, especially the Tesla system is.
Well, this is another parallel with the early auto industry is exactly you have to when you first adapted an automobile in 1905 or 6, it was a dramatic change from using a horse and wagon. You had to think different, and the same with electric vehicles. Like you said, you stop every 2 or 3 hours, but you know, uh, I do that period anyway. I stop every 2 to 3 hours, stretch my legs, and so yeah.
And there's a whole community of people out there with electric vehicles. So when we get to a station, we stop, and as you said, we take a stretch and such. But there are people out there running. They put their running clothes on and they run, or they take a hike, or and one of the more interesting things is we all talk. All the Tesla owners, we have a meetup.
Yeah, like I say, there again, I keep going back to this. The parallels are so fascinating. I was reading Edsel Ford's travel journal from 1915, and that is exactly what they did then. They would stop somewhere to get gas, or they'd be repairing a tire, and next thing you know, they've got 5 or 6 other automobilists, as they were called, and they're traveling together. They're visiting together.
Yeah,
They're ending up at the same place at night and sharing experiences and talking,
yeah.
building a sense of community.
And that is what's going on now, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, at the risk of sounding like a name dropper, I've had the privilege to talk to Jay Leno on several occasions, and he's just as passionate about automobiles in general,
Yeah.
but he has a real fondness for electric vehicles, and he's got some interesting examples. One of his projects that he was engaged in a couple of years ago when I spoke to him was a mid-teens Detroit Electric that he was going to create a kind of a resto mod using a more modern electric battery system and motor technology and keeping the rest of the car original.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure if he ever completed that yet.
Well, there's a guy down in Phoenix. Uh, his company is called. I can't remember it right now. I'll think of it. But he has a 1972 El Camino that he converted to run on electricity, and we had his vehicle at the fun run last year.
Yes, I spoke with that gentleman recently for an article I was writing about.
It's called vintage.
Uh,
Vintage.
it's a small market, it's a niche market, but people that are creating basically a modern version of the hot rod by converting vintage vehicles to electric.
His company is Vintage Iron and Restoration.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and he's working on a lot of other EVs, EV conversions there. And then there is another company in Tempe, Arizona called they're called Legacy EV, and they sell the parts to do that. So it is and you need to know that the Electric Vehicle Association, which is based in Southern California, that company's been around. I mean, that nonprofit's been around since the '60s, and mostly electrical engineers and people doing conversions. So a long time before the EV1 and the current spate of electric vehicles.
Well, that's the one reason I'm really supportive and excited about the electric vehicle museum. It's developing. Unfortunately, it's not fast enough for me. But I understand the problems. But dispelling the myths, so to speak. But a museum that chronicles the evolution of the electric vehicle, I think, is an important educational step in public awareness about electric vehicles. Because you mentioned at the beginning of this that electric vehicles have been here since the beginning, and people don't realize, like for Mr. Ferdinand Porsche, his first vehicle was electric. Studebaker, when they started making the transition from horse and carriages to automobiles, they began with production of electric vehicles.
That is true.
The hybrid vehicle intrigues me too. I'm seeing some evolution there. And I think the hybrid, like, of course, everybody thinks the Toyota Prius, I think that's a good bridge between going full electric and just being gas.
I agree with that to some extent. Excuse me. Uh, the hybrid you still have to maintain an internal combustion engine.
Yes.
Even though it runs on electric, you still have that. You still have those. You still have to get oil changes, and you still have to maintain the other parts of an internal combustion engine, and that can be quite expensive. In fact, recently, when our daughter turned 16, we got a Chevy Volt for her to drive, which was a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, And we have recently replaced that with a Mustang Mach-E. And it's a great vehicle, and we don't have to do service anymore. So that's an additional benefit of that. I think that, essentially Elon Musk and others leapfrogged the interim plug-in hybrid electric vehicle.
Yes, I would agree with that. I had a fellow I worked with at Grand Canyon Caverns out here on Route 66, John McNulty, and it was interesting to see. He had a Toyota Prius, but he worked 3 days a week in Los Angeles and 3 days a week here at the caverns. So he was putting roughly 1,000 miles a week on a vehicle. And it was kind of interesting to see the problems he had, the problems he didn't have, and the durability of those vehicles. I've also got people I know, Norm up at Max Pins in Prescott. I've been following his exploits. He travels Route 66 extensively, to the tune of anywhere from 30 to 60,000 miles a year, making deliveries. And he's gone through a succession of vehicles, Toyotas, Subarus, Hondas. And a few years ago, he switched to Tesla. And oh boy, is he ever a proponent for Tesla ownership.
Yep.
He says it's the best thing he ever did. Putting on, and like I say, he does 30, 40, 50,000 miles a year.
Yep.
So he would be a fellow that would know.
Yes, absolutely. And there are some Teslas out there that have been 400,000 miles on one battery. So, when they first came out, they had some ideas how long these batteries would last, but they didn't realize that they would last as long as they do. And, one of the barriers to mass electric adoption is people giving misinformation. I've heard from people that you have to replace the battery every 30,000 miles. That's just so ridiculous. It's unbelievable. So,
well, that's the kind of, and I don't mean this in a prejudicial manner at all. That's the kind of ignorance I hope to dispel with our conversation this morning and in general. And because to me, I should clarify this perhaps, but there's nothing wrong with ignorance. Ignorance can be cured. The stupidity, well, that's a different thing entirely. But that was a question I was going to ask you because I received that a lot. How often do you need to change the batteries in a Tesla? And how expensive is that process?
But the price is coming down every year, right? So the more vehicles that are sold and the more batteries that are out there. And the other thing that people need to know is electric car batteries are something like 98% recyclable. Or it's either recycled or repurposed. So oftentimes electric vehicle, electric vehicle batteries that have been replaced are used for backup batteries for homes and businesses.
Well, that takes us to another question you might be able to delve into a little bit. The home charging systems that Tesla has developed.
Yes.
That intrigues me a lot. I was reading about the solar shingles and some of the other projects that Mr. Musk has been involved with. And home charging system seems like a logical step for Tesla owners.
Well, so here's the deal. Okay, so I live in way North Scottsdale near Cave Creek. Lots of people out here have solar roofs. Okay, and it's people that are normally would not buy an electric vehicle, right? So they're more off the grid kind of people. They have, they're conservative, and they're not buying electric vehicles, but they're buying electric roofs. So making that connection to people has been very successful for us as an organization. Is we run into people that don't have electric vehicles, but they do have solar roofs, and say you at least need to have an electric vehicle as a second car, because you plug it in and it's free, and you don't have to pay for the variations in oil prices because of what's going on in the world. So we've been very successful in pushing that. It's the economic benefits of owning an electric vehicle. I don't even mention climate change. It is all about this is a better technology than gas.
That's very good, very well done. There's no need. It's almost biblical. You approach people where they're at, and you talk to them accordingly. There's no need to bring climate change into the discussion, especially if these people are very conservative and they're simply looking at ways to save money and be more self-sufficient. You approach it from that standpoint. This is the next evolutionary step in being self-sufficient.
I mean, here's it. They're more fun. They cost almost nothing to maintain. I think my Tesla, I have a 2018 Tesla Model 3 that has never been in for service.
Yeah, that's definitely
It
an
ends with
improvement.
what's called one pedal driving because you have regenerative braking, where when you take your foot off the accelerator, it reverses the engine and recharges the battery from picking up from the energy expended or the lack of energy expended as you slow down. It pulls energy into the battery. The brakes never need service. And the joke in the Tesla community, at least some years ago, was, yeah, you have a Tesla. The only service is changing tires and window wiper blades.
Tires. This is another question I get asked a lot.
Okay.
Because of the weight, do Teslas go through tires a little bit faster?
Yes.
They do.
All electric vehicles, especially if they're heavy. I drive a Rivian, actually, R1T truck, and it's over 7,000 pounds. And I don't expect the tires to last the 50,000 miles that my gas car lasted. I think it's going to be more like, 20 or 30,000. But the tire industry is working on special tires for the torque and weight of electric vehicles. And I think Goodyear just came out with a new one. I don't know, I'm not sure of the name of it, but and there are some other materials. There's a product called Waiuli, which is a plant grown in Arizona that has been used with rubber in tires. And eventually I'm hoping that a more sustainable tire is created, maybe 100% Waiuli or whatever. But and there's been some companies that are also working on airless tires, which are really interesting. They are instead of the tire flexing, the core of the wheel flexes. But I haven't seen those come out commercially yet. But we are watching all that. I think this is a really great time to be in research for electric vehicles. There's a lot of opportunity out there. A lot of businesses are being created.
Yeah, the evolution is the technological evolution of everything associated with the electric vehicle is just fascinating. You don't have to be an EV enthusiast, but if you've got any kind of curiosity or fascination with developments, the EV technology, the EV automobiles, the evolution is extraordinary to watch.
Yep.
Pretty darned astounding.
Yep.
Rivian and Tesla pretty much are the leaders at this point, I assume. There's a few startups that seem to be trying to make inroads.
Yeah, there's a bunch of startups that are actually being fairly successful. I think, right now, everybody who's switching over to electric is going to go through or starting up electric, what Tesla went through. And that is they immediately come out with very expensive vehicles, right? So for Tesla, it was the Model S and the Model X, but you don't sell that many of them, right? You need a mass market vehicle. And so Tesla came out with a Model 3 and it really took off after that, and the company became profitable. I think the same thing's going on with Rivian. They have an R1S and an R1T, but they're rather expensive vehicles. I think you can get into an R1T for 75,000 or more. But they just announced the R2, and that one is essentially an SUV that is smaller than the R1S, and they're bringing it out for $45,000. I think that will be big.
That's going to be
that will take Rivian into profitability for sure.
Yeah, and that'll make them competitive.
Yes, Ford is going through the same thing. They're losing a lot of money for every EV they sell, but as they sell more EVs and come out with more EVs, eventually they'll get to profitability.
Just like
investment.
Well, just as old Henry Ford did with the Model T, he had to go through a few, the Model A, the Model N, the Model S, and well, the Model T did it. Put them on the map, put it over the top.
Mm-hmm.
It's intriguing. European countries, I can't remember. I believe it was Sweden now that Tesla is one of the top selling vehicles in the country.
Yes,
and that
Norway. People ask, when I get into a conversation with people about because I do a lot of events and talk to a lot of people. One of the questions is about cold weather. Of course, it doesn't really affect us here, but in the upper Midwest, where it gets very cold during the winter, they say, I guess you can't really own a Tesla there. And I said, yes, you absolutely can. It's not a problem. And I said, the number one country that has converted to electric vehicles is Norway.
Norway, okay.
Mm-hmm. Norway, where 80% or 90%, I think I read recently, of new vehicles sold are electric.
I couldn't remember if it was, I know it was one of the Scandinavian countries. I could not remember. That's another one to follow. That's quite interesting because that's another question I receive a lot. Well, you can drive an EV here because it's not cold, but I didn't think that was quite right.
Right, that's not true. There's a lot of misinformation out there. So,
well, with we need the education, and with people such as yourself, Jessica, and Mike, we're pushing that back. We're creating more and more awareness. Nolan Stoltz asked about other models coming out, but Nissan, Hyundai, Kia, Volkswagen. Yep. If you have any information on the electrics being produced by those companies.
I don't really follow. There's so many different announcements of, potential EVs out there. I don't even really talk about anything until it actually hits the market. So there's a lot of vaporware in EVs. And yes. I go to shows and I see EVs there that, they say, oh, this is going to come out, but it never comes out. And so it's, there's so many EVs out there, though. I think we're over 200 now that are available. So as they come out, we'll talk about them. But generally don't talk about things until they're out.
Yeah, that's probably best. I know I don't know Nolan much about this, but a fellow I know has one of the new Volkswagen electrics. We drove it to Winslow. I found it to be a very fascinating automobile. We didn't have real issues. There was a little bit of challenge on charging, but we were never stranded anywhere or have any problems. Right. But I found it to be a pretty nice and fascinating car, especially compared to the old 98 Jeep that I wander around in.
I run a Facebook group it's called Tesla. It's called EV Road Trippers. And about 7,500 members in that. I talked to a guy on there who has driven from New Hampshire to Anchorage, Alaska 4 times. And there is no charging infrastructure for EVs past, someplace in, I think it's northern Alberta. I think you run past northern Alberta or middle of Alberta or the middle of British Columbia, or even lower than that, and then you're in the no man's land of electric vehicle charging. And I said, how do you do it? And he says he goes to, what are they called? KOAs and places like that where it's for motorhomes, and they let him charge. So all you really need is a cable that connects to a 220 plug, and that works. And he's done it. He's done it 4 times.
I will be doing a blog post on the Jim Hinckley's America website about today's program, and I'll include that information on the Facebook page, the group with EV road trippers. I think people would find that very interesting.
Yes. And there you can talk to a lot of different people who have a lot of different experience with a lot of different EVs. So if you're interested in talking to them.
Yeah, and the cost factor, there again, once you just take a deep breath and look at if you're buying a new vehicle, like we said, 45 to 55,000 is, unfortunately, that's just pretty much a normal price for a new vehicle, a budget vehicle now. But when you look at the long-term benefits, the lack of cost you're going to incur because of maintenance,
yes,
it really starts to look appealing.
And with the farther you live from your service, from your dealership, that should be another point of benefit. So I talk to people in rural areas all the time, and if people who live in Peach Springs would have to drive to Kingman to get their service. And if you're a working person, you have to take time off work. You have to bring your car in. You have to get dealerships these days are giving you a ride sharing service pass so you can go home, and then you got to go back and get your vehicle when it's repaired or serviced or maintained. And so you're losing time and convenience there. And so the farther you are, people, you were talking originally, it's a great vehicle for urban areas. It's a great vehicle for everything. If you live far, even people in Scottsdale that have to drive, 10, 15 miles to the service station or to to get their maintenance done, can benefit from no maintenance.
Right. No, it's what I was talking about earlier was the electric vehicle has always, from the 1890s, they were ideal for urban use. But it's just recently that we've gotten to a point where they've become not only practical, but like you just stated, realistic for urban use. Right. That's kind of a new phenomenon.
Yes.
John, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule this morning, and for enlightening me and a few others here about the electric vehicle. I really greatly appreciate this. I've had a long fascination with electric vehicles, and I get so many questions that I don't have answers for because I don't have the personal experience. So I have truly appreciated this very much.
Well, and there's more, and I would love to tell you sometime about all the experiences or some of the really unique experiences I've had driving cross country in an EV, and not necessarily because they're EVs, but some of the road tripping experiences that I've had that are just amazing. So
you want to share a couple of those with me?
So we're going across Kansas, I think, on this last trip last summer, and we stopped in a place called Salina, Kansas. Have you ever been there?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Beautiful town. Extraordinary. From the art and public art and that sort of thing. We were in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia last year. We stopped at this cute, place like a pub. It was called the Knot Pub, Knot pub. And we sat down in this interesting bar sitting at the bar, but we were sitting across from each other in the bar, and there was a guy there wearing an ASU T-shirt, and we got into a conversation. All these people came to the bar, and three different groups, not including us, so it's four groups of people, were all from Arizona.
It is a small, small world sometimes, and when you travel and find things like that, you realize just how small it is.
Yes. And have you ever heard of something called Tesla caching?
No.
So this is something that started years ago in the Tesla community, and what they are is they're little. You get your own car as a Hot Wheels or the other one. I forget what it's called, and you put a cable on it and in a little information thing, which I could send you if you want to see what it looks like.
Yes, please.
And you leave them at superchargers, and it gives people instructions. They go online and they say where they found it, and then the idea is they take it to another Tesla supercharger, and they leave it for somebody else. So it's called Tesla caching, and we did that in our trip last year, and we left one at each charging station all the way across our route, and one of them, my wife was just telling me about that. Let's see if I can find it here. One of them that somebody picked up in Farmington, New Mexico. Then they left it in Tucumcari, New Mexico. Then it went to Amarillo, back to Farmington, Weatherford, Oklahoma, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Joplin, Missouri, Rolla, Missouri, Fenton, Missouri, and Terre Haute, Indiana. So that little car that we left as a cache was brought across the country in that way.
Yeah, it adds a little bit of, they're again building a sense of community, Tesla owners, but it adds a little bit of fun to the road trip.
Yes, it did. Yes, it does. So
very good.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll add that to the story. I think that's important. John, thank you so very much. If you find yourself up in Kingman, let me know a little bit ahead of time. Maybe we can coordinate, and I'll spring for a cup of coffee and we can do a bit of visiting.
Sounds great. Now that we have a chapter up there, you'll probably see me more often than not.
Well, I look forward to that. This is going to be a challenging area to sell the idea of electric vehicles, but I know it can be done, and I think you're going to find people interested.
Yeah, with the economic reasons for owning an EV up in Kingman, I think you have a very supportive public utility up there that has an electric vehicle program. So I think between that and all the chargers that are in Kingman and the museum and everything else, I think there's great promise for Kingman in the electric vehicle industry.
God, like I say, we started this in 2014. Kingman, crossroads of the past and the future.
Yep.
That's the game plan.
Yes.
John, again, thank you so very much. I have really enjoyed this conversation, and I want to do this again sometime.
Sounds great.
And we'll get we got a lot of great folks with us today from all the Ransom E. Olds Museum in Michigan, and of course Jessica's with us this morning, and Professor Nolan Stoltz, and a few others.
Yes.
Jessica will take that under advisement to check into the blinker fluid. Thank you, guys. Thanks for everyone for doing this. I greatly appreciate this. And the idea behind this program is to inspire road trips and share America's story. And this is both of them. It's America's story of the past and the future, and it's also road trip inspiration. For next week's, what we're going to do for road trip information inspiration. We're going to talk to Jeffrey Schmidt. He's got a book out. I found this very fascinating. Here today, Oklahoma's ghost towns, vanishing towns, and towns persisting against the odds. And I found this book to be, well, another more road trip inspiration. But I found some of the stories about these little towns to be quite fascinating. So I think you're going to enjoy that a lot. So invite your friends and grab a cup of coffee, and we'll do this again next week.
One thing I'd like to leave with you.
Yes, please.
Right. At our 11,000-mile road trip in last summer, it cost us $265 in electricity.
Well. Another reason to consider going electric for long distance. Yes, sir, Bob.
And a lot of that was staying at hotels that have electric vehicle chargers for free. Overnight, level 2 chargers for free. So think about that.
There's been a dramatic uptick just in the last 4 years. A dramatic uptick in people traveling Route 66 with electric vehicles. So you guys are making progress, yes. Creating awareness.
Yep.
We'll give a shout out too, speaking of charging and motels. Give a shout out to some of our good sponsors and supporters here. The Roadrunner Lodge in Tucumcari, New Mexico is a wonderful little time capsule David Brenner's created. Of course, the iconic Wagon Wheel Motel in Cuba, Missouri, and the Cactus Inn Motel in McLean, Texas. A little for the EV owners, keep in mind that they also have an RV park for charging there. But McLean, Texas, Angela Moreland's done a great job with that. And I'll have to check with Louis Keene at Uranus Fudge Company and General Store and see if he's done anything with EV charging. I just imagine he has. He's quite a visionary. I'll have to check on that. That's another note to myself. John, again, thank you. And to everyone who joined us this morning, thank you. I hope you found it as fascinating as I did. And, until next week, I bid you adios, and we'll see if we can inspire a road trip and maybe some EV ownership. John, thank you. Take care, my friends.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
And we'll see everybody, next week, 7 o'clock. Invite your friends and put the coffee on. And we'll send this out with a little bit of music from Joe and Woody and the boys of the road crew. They've been performing at the Route 66 Centennial Kickoff in Galena this weekend and in Joplin, Missouri.
Into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America.
Hey, we're going to have to do something with electric vehicles for the Route 66 Centennial. Something else to talk about.
When is that?
2026.
Tell you what else we need.
Hey, what's that?
We need music for EVs. We need songs.
Oh, yes, we do.
And it's a great opportunity for musicians who like to write music. Because there was
yes.
so many songs came out of the era, with in the 50s and 60s about their cars.
Yeah, Hot Rod Lincoln and all the songs. Yes, indeed. We need music for the EV road trip. Yes, we do. Nolan, if you're listening. My friends, again, thank you. I won't chew on your ear too much this morning. I think we could do this for quite a while, but God bless. Thank you, John. Another inspiration there. Until next week, I'll bid you adios if you're out here in Western Arizona. Plan for the heat. Summer's coming. And, make sure you keep all four wheels on the road. We'll talk soon, my friends. Vaya con Dios. Adios, John.
Adios.